Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 174 of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad, and it is a privilege and pleasure to be back with you for another week of conversation about something I think is so important to our community. But before we get into that, I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the Nora Speaks podcast. Wherever you are listening to this show, I want you to hit the subscribe button, whether you're listening on Amazon Music, iHeart Music, TuneIn, Pandora, Spotify, Castbox, Google Podcasts, wherever you stream this podcast. I encourage you to subscribe, and I also encourage you to leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review, and share this podcast with your family, with your friends. And I'm very curious about what you think about this podcast. I'm curious about how you view what I share here on this show. And so you can always email me at nora@noraspeaks.com. My email address is nora@noraspeaks.com. We are into episode 174, and the time is just flying by. The year is almost out. And before we conclude 2021, we get to watch a wonderful film, King Richard. King Richard is about the life of Richard Williams, who is the father of Venus and Serena Williams. And I haven't seen the movie myself, but I really look forward to seeing it. I'm so glad that this film was made about this man and the amazing feat and accomplishment with producing these sisters, Venus and Serena, and the magnitude of the impact that he had on sports. And as with any release of any new film, there is press. There's press that's giving reviews and writers who are talking about the film. And I have to say, some of what I'm seeing, some of what you may have seen, some of what you may have read, it shows the scorn. It shows the hatred. It really reveals our disdain for Black men. And I came across an article, and I'm going to share this article, a link to it in my show notes so that you can take a look at it yourself. And after you read it, let me know what you think. You can shoot me an email, or you can make a comment on Instagram or Facebook at Nora Speaks Podcast. So as this film is released, and we know King Richard is about Richard Williams. We know Richard Williams because of Venus and Serena Williams. And I came across an article, and the article is titled King Richard and the Delicate Dance of Exalting a Flawed Black Man. And my first thought when I read, first of all, it's just, to me, the article, the title is just deplorable. It's deplorable. It's offensive, in fact. The delicate dance of exalting a flawed Black man. As if any man that's exalted is without flaws. I mean, I think for someone to say, but I'm not perfect. I mean, isn't that stating the obvious? It's like acknowledging that water is wet or that fire is hot. That is just stating the obvious. And so in this article, the author talks about how, in her opinion, that this movie is somewhat lacking authenticity. In fact, the byline of this article, tennis icons Venus and Serena Williams' dad Richard gains a hagiographical profile in the new film. Now, if you don't know what the word hagiographical means, it basically means that the writing is in somewhat of an admiring style, or it's a biography that's been idealized. And again, the disdain, the scorn, the contempt for Black men, to me, is very, very evident in the title of this article, in the writing of this article. And while I am not attacking the author, I am attacking the mindset that we have of this hatred and this scorn that we exhibit for Black men. Black women do it. Other people do it who are not Black. And it's something that we have to look at. It's something that we have to address. And I'm going to address it in the context of this article, specifically in articles that are written like it. However, this is not just something that is isolated to Richard Williams. I've seen this about other Black men, other Black fathers who take somewhat of a unconventional and unorthodox approach. And if I can just back up and, tell the story or share, not tell the story, the movie's going to tell the story, you go out and see it, but just share, Richard Williams decided when his daughters were very, very young that they could be and they would be tennis stars. And this man wrote, it's written of him, that he wrote a 78-page manifesto planning out the careers of his daughters. When they were just toddling around, he knew he had a plan in his mind that they were going to be the greatest tennis players that ever played. And they achieved his goal. They achieved the dream that he set out for them. Now, Richard Williams was just a poor Black father, like many of our poor Black fathers. He didn't have very much to his name. He was working a job that was dead end, that he didn't like, that didn't give him joy. And he had this idea. And how many Black men have an idea and we say, man, what are you talking about? The doubt and the discouraging language that we use when Black men are talking to us about their ideas, about their dreams, about their goals. And we're just so dismissive. Man, just go to work. Just work that job. We don't give too much time and attention to a Black man and his vision. And I'm sure that Richard Williams encountered the same thing. I'm sure he was met with doubt from everybody that he discussed his idea with. And yet, with very little to his name, now we know that there are some sports or some activities that require a great deal of wealth or capital for a child to have an opportunity to really aspire, to really achieve. I mean, you've seen stories or documentaries about the Williams sisters when they're out with their father on cracked concrete, hitting the tennis balls with their dad, and how unlikely it is that this poor family from Compton could produce what I say are the gods of the tennis world. And because the methodology that this man implored to navigate so that he could make sure that the dream that he had for his daughters were realized, he could not do it in the typical manner. So he was unconventional. He was unorthodox. He was misunderstood. He was not pliant to the traditions of this world. He didn't follow their rules. He made up his own rules. And we know that a society governed with white supremacy and black inferiority, with keeping the have-nots without, keeping those who are lacking in want. We know that this is designed to keep people where they are. Stay in your lane, stay in your place. And I'm sure that this man heard this many times. We've heard where Venus and Serena Williams on tennis tours, on the tours, have faced racism, have faced bigotry. So we know if these girls faced it, we know this dark-skinned black man faced it as well. This black man who didn't look, quote, acceptable, who didn't walk in an acceptable way, who didn't talk in an acceptable way. I recall an interview that Venus Williams was doing when she was very, very young. I don't know, she may have been 12 years old, 13 years old. And there's a Caucasian male reporter who's interviewing her. And in some way, the man asked her a question and about what she could achieve. And she, could you be number one in the world? Something to that effect. And she said, yes, I do. And he said, do you really believe that? And she said, yes, I do. And he said, well, why do you believe? And Richard interrupted the interview and said, the girl told you, the child told you. Now, you're not going to keep questioning her and now putting doubt in her mind, because these people are looking at these two little brown-skinned black girls and saying, where do they have the audacity to think that they can achieve? They got that audacity from their father. And the interviewer kind of said to Rich, you can't keep interrupting the interview. This man is protecting the heart and mind of his daughter. And that is what we saw in Richard Williams as Venus and Serena entered the tennis world, or at least when they got our attention. And we saw someone that did not fit their mold. And that 78-page manifesto that man wrote to plan out the careers of his daughters. How many of us can say that we've written our plan, whatever our plans are, and we made it happen? Especially a plan that requires, not a plan, but to succeed in a sport like tennis or gymnastics or ballet, to study with the top coaches, the top tier, to have the best equipment. You need some money. You have to have some money, right? There's a toll that you have to pay to gain access. Well, they didn't pay toll in the traditional way. And a lot of people didn't like Richard because of that. And they definitely didn't like Venus and Serena because of that. Now, all these years later, these women dominating tennis for 2 decades and more. Now, here we are finally getting an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate this amazing black mind, his strength of will, the determination that he had, the belief that he had in what he could do with his daughters. And we have this opportunity to watch this film, to watch this history, to just enjoy honoring this man. And we see articles like this, King Richard and the Delicate Dance of Exalting a Flawed Black Man. This article title is written as if you can find a man that's exalted that lacks flaws. Again, stating the obvious. And for us to see this man being celebrated, we do something in our community. I call it the yeah, but, he's good, but yeah, it worked out. But, we always want to put a but because we want to put a qualifier, because God forbid we let the suggestion hang that this man is great. No. Let me qualify that. Let me add in some mistake, some error, some flaw that this man has made in his history. And then specifically, this article is talking about this man's relationship with his wife and the imperfection that he had as a husband. Again, I want to find a husband. You tell me you know one that's perfect. You show me one that is not imperfect. You show me a wife that is not imperfect. Can't we just celebrate this black man? Can't we say that he is a brilliant black man, full stop? And just let that hang. We can end it there, but we want to qualify it by acknowledging, but wait, he had flaws. But wait, he erred. Or but wait, he and his wife had conflict. Look, if you're married, you're going to have conflict. If you're married, you're going to make a mistake. But we don't know Richard Williams because he's married to Oracene. We know Richard Williams because he's the father of Venus and Serena Williams. And that is the track and the depiction and the motivation for this particular movie. Is it necessary that we tell a story about a person that includes all parts of their history? I don't think that's necessary. And let us enjoy a story that's celebrating a black man, that's celebrating this black man. But you can take this kind of conversation and we can transfer this from Richard Williams to other black men who are trying to make their way, who are not bowing and capitulating to traditional culture, to traditional ways, and a black man that is headstrong, that is not soft, that is not being pliant. You know, there's something in our culture that really wants us to keep the foot on the neck of the black man. God forbid he thinks he's special. God forbid he thinks he can achieve his goals. God forbid he think that he can establish a reality that he wants for himself and for his family. Our self-hatred is almost reflexive, like when you go to the doctor and they tap your knee with that little tool and your leg pops out. Our self-hatred is almost reflexive, just like that, because we have been trained and brainwashed. How many documentaries or biographical depictions have we seen in film? And we don't have to stop and say, but wait, this person wasn't perfect. But wait, this person had flaws. But wait, you know, it's silly, it's demeaning, it's condescending, and it's simply offensive. God forbid we honor a black man without adding any qualifier. Let's just say that this black man, King Richard Williams, he is a brilliant black man, full stop. He gave us the gods who ruled over the game of tennis, who changed international sports. And he wrote their destiny and he manifests that destiny. And we should be so proud. Now, Oracene can have a movie or write a book, or, you know, we can have her depiction of what their marriage was, but I doubt that she would want to do that. And why is that even necessary? And why would that be part of the conversation? There is something in the article. I think it may be the last sentence in this article. And the writer writes, while it's remarkable to see a black male character given such nuance, it makes you wonder if the genders were reversed and these were Oracene's infractions, would she be given the same treatment? So not only are we going to denigrate or mitigate the kind of praise and honor we give this man, now we're going to make it a war of the genders. You know, so the sentence starts off as if this is a great thing. While it's remarkable to see a black male character given such nuance, then she hits you with, it makes you wonder if the genders were reversed and these were Oracene's infractions, would she be given the same treatment? it's now we're going to insert the male versus the female, specifically the black male versus the black female. And, this is kind of indicative of the training. And I don't mean, like somebody's been programmed, like they're some kind of robot. But what I will say is that our culture, by everything we hear, by everything that we see, by all that we are exposed to, this culture does not like black men, and it programs and trains us to think and behave accordingly. And without us being aware of it, without us being clued in, because sometimes we don't know that we're just responding in a programmed way. We don't know that we're just responding and acting out our training, but somebody's got to say it. And I know that I am not exempt from being programmed. I am not exempt from the culture of America that, downplays the magnificence of black men. I'm not exempt from that. I experience this too. But what I do is always try to check myself. And when I am checked, I acknowledge if it's there, because I don't want to perpetuate this hatred and this scorn and this disdain and contempt for black men. But we see it happening. This brother finally is getting his roses. And some of us are saying, but wait, not so fast, not so fast. And how awful it is that we participate in this kind of derailment of the praise and honor given to this black man. So let's just acknowledge this is a brilliant black man and put a period at the end of that sentence. So I say to this author and to those of us who think like this, we have to check our self-hatred. We have to check our self-hatred for black men. We have to check it. We have to check it. We have to get this thing under control. What harm is it for us to acknowledge this brother? What harm is it for us to celebrate and find him praiseworthy? King Richard. When I read this article, I think I may have read it last weekend or late last week. And man, I was just so taken aback. It's almost as if you're at someone's memorial service where, everyone's talking about all of the great experiences with him. And you want to say, hold on, not so fast. Before you go, I let you go away thinking that this man was special. Let me relieve you of the fact that this man is great. And so, we should just celebrate this man without exception and without qualification. We need to check our self-hatred, specifically our hatred of the black man. Check it at the door. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Let me know what you think about this episode and others. And I leave you by saying, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.